the summer swing never happened for us either.
I don't know if it's the hurricane, the economy, a mix of the two, but we've definitely been, everybody around here that I spoke to has been down about 30% this year.
30% of tourists decreased due to hurricane and economic issues. Okay, those are the two familiar culprits that people often point to when mentioning the instability of Florida tourism. That sounds reasonable, but what if I told you the truth behind it is much more serious? In the second quarter of this year alone, Florida still welcomed 34.4 million visitors. But that encouraging sign is telling a different story from what is actually happening in this state. Beaches that were once packed with people are now as empty as abandoned land. The magnificent resorts turned into empty seashells lit up at night, but no one stepped inside anymore. Restaurants, shops, parks, they all tell the same story. Florida is no longer a dream destination. If the storm only shook a few roofs, the real cracks were in the very way Florida builds, sells, and nurtures its tourism dream. So, when that glamorous facade crumbles, will we finally see what the whole country fears? In today's video, we won't just be talking about natural disasters or economic crises. We will expose the underlying causes that are making Florida lose its appeal, and potentially serve as a warning for the entire US tourism industry. Are you ready to explore? Let's get started right now. To truly feel the emptiness enveloping Florida, try stepping into the state's airports and looking at the silent rows of waiting seats. What was once the gateway welcoming millions of visitors each year, especially those seeking a retirement paradise, is now eerily silent. Even this year, statistics still record 34.4 million domestic and international visitors. It sounds full of hope, but when compared to the actual scene, the numbers don't seem to match the empty waiting areas, which look like an abandoned house. To find the answer to why, perhaps we need to get back in the time machine and go back to last April. When the tariff disputes from the Trump administration unexpectedly strained the close, neighborly relations between the US and Canada, as well as other nearby countries, causing the wave of reaction to quickly turn into a boycott movement. In a state where Canadian tourists make up the majority of the market, the impact is like a direct blow to the heart of the tourism industry. Moreover, we can't ignore the cost of airfare. Even with empty airports, ticket prices show no signs of cooling down. A round-trip flight to London or Paris can cost as little as $258, while an average domestic flight from many states to Florida has already surged to around $236. In other words, a vacation in Florida now costs almost as much as a transatlantic adventure. What was once seen as the easy and affordable choice has turned into a financial burden that many families no longer want to deal with. The result is that not only domestic tourists, but also snowbirds, the group of elderly Canadians who have been loyal for decades, are changing their habits. More than 80% of them who once chose Florida as a winter retreat are now quietly changing course. The political rift in April was just the final straw, with the real decision being made within each family. Florida was no longer worth returning to. And so, Florida's airports, once gateways to retirement paradise, now stand as testaments to emptiness. Planes still take off every day, but the cabin stretches empty. Sometimes beside the crew, there are only a few scattered passengers, mostly one-way flights leaving Florida. Florida was once the golden ticket that everyone wanted to have. However, today that ticket has become a symbol of a country's decline. Perhaps the American Eagle's wings are also becoming heavy, and in the near future, it may no longer have the strength to fly as far as before. If even the door that once opened to retirement paradise is now as silent as an abandoned house, what is truly waiting behind the Florida dream? When the golden tickets of a bygone era become a burden, can America still keep the wings of freedom that once carried generations far? Or will they only fly around the memories of the past? And that's not all. The lack of visitors not only resulted in a quiet summer, but also came at a high cost for Florida residents and businesses. What consequences are they suffering? Let's find out in the next part. Going to Florida was once a dream for millions, but it seems the world has chosen to wake up to avoid having to dream about America anymore. And when tourists turn their backs on the American dream, it's the local businesses that have to live through the nightmare. Tourism has long been considered Florida's cash cow. It's not just an economic sector, but also an image, an identity, and a source of pride for the state. However, just a small tremor in the summer is enough to make residents and businesses here feel the pain deeply. According to Visit Tampa Bay, the overall report still shows visitor numbers on par with previous years. But for many small businesses along Johns Pass, the reality is quite the opposite. In the second quarter of 2025, the number of visitors decreased by up to 14% compared to the same period last year. This was the third consecutive quarter with a double-digit decline. Orlando lost nearly 6 million visitors, and parks like Disney and Universal, which were once packed, are now eerily empty. A business owner frankly admitted, "Reality is not what the statistics show. This is the slowest summer we've experienced since 2020.
So it is a ghost town.
A slow summer, compounded by the aftermath of hurricanes, has left many businesses in Florida struggling. For the lucky ones, they only had to close temporarily for about 10 weeks. But even that break was enough to bury a year's worth of profits. And for many other businesses, the door that closes once stays closed forever, never opening again. The economic impact is terrible. Tourism accounts for up to 15% of Florida's GDP, but just one empty season led to a 12% drop in spending. In a single night, the state lost nearly 35,000 service industry jobs, from restaurants and hotels to small eateries, suddenly putting the livelihoods of tens of thousands of families at a standstill. Even the real estate market, which is considered a long-term anchor, is being shaken violently. Brokers acknowledge that the current trend is not just fewer tourists, but also a wave of selling off guest houses and rental apartments, as if a long-standing love affair with Florida is slowly coming to an end. Each snowbird who doesn't return means about $40,000 disappears from the local economy. If this trend continues, Florida could lose 30–35% of its Canadian visitors in the winter of 2025. That number is not just a warning, but a clear illustration. Hundreds of thousands of vacation homes and hotel rooms will be completely empty, leaving a difficult-to-fill economic gap for the state. Many Native Americans used to think that life would be more pleasant when tourists were absent, especially Canadian visitors. Streets would be less congested, and house prices would cool down. But in reality, the opposite happened. When businesses have no customers, shops are forced to close, while operating costs are shifted onto the shoulders of the remaining residents. The result was that prices didn't decrease, but actually increased, while the local community had to live with reduced choices. Florida is still bathed in sunshine, but its economy is cooling down day by day. On paper, Florida is touted as America's #1 economy, with its GDP growing from trillion in 2017 to $1.7 trillion in just a few years. But behind those seemingly brilliant numbers, the lives of the people are becoming increasingly difficult, and they are bearing the consequences of decisions they have no say in. Meanwhile, while Mexico, the Bahamas, Europe, and the Middle East are experiencing a tourism boom, the United States and Florida are becoming a testament to the fragility of an economic model that relies too heavily on protectionism and short-term management. If the numbers on paper still shine brightly, but the lives of the people are increasingly struggling, what is the true meaning of a #1 digital economy? If the money machine has broken down, what will support Florida in the coming winters? There's a puzzling paradox unfolding in Florida. While the beaches remain pristine, the sun shines brightly, and the slogan "Retirement Paradise" still graces billboards, political decisions are quietly creating cracks beneath the surface. What happens on paper, from tax regulations and subsidies to disaster relief packages, is no longer a distant concept. They are present in every electricity bill, every cancelled vacation, and even in the local residents' sense of unease. One of the most noticeable impacts is the rapid increase in the cost of living as state and local governments seek to balance their budgets. Service taxes and hidden fees in tourism are becoming increasingly dense. This makes the Florida resort experience lose its inherent appeal. For tourists, the feeling of being added to the bill becomes a reason to reconsider their choice. A 2024 Pew Research survey found that nearly 52% of Americans over 55 felt no longer confident that public policies could keep the cost of living and travel reasonable. This figure reflects widespread concern, especially in a state where tourism is the backbone industry. The problem isn't just with the tourists. Floridians also feel the tension in every political decision. After major storms, many communities are looking forward to rapid relief packages. But in reality, resource allocation is slow, and many small businesses find it difficult to access. Local residents witnessed large resorts remaining open, while restaurants and small shops were forced to close because they didn't receive timely support. This fosters a sense of inequality, not because someone intentionally did it, but because the way policies are designed creates gaps. Politics is also affecting the psychology of those who once considered Florida a dream retirement destination. When constantly hearing about rising living costs, expensive healthcare, or instability after storms, many people choose to retreat. Instead of buying a home in Florida, they are looking at alternative domestic destinations, or even moving to Mexico, Portugal, or Costa Rica, places where favorable policies are clearly advertised and easily accessible. Florida, inadvertently, has lost its competitive advantage to places that were once considered only second choices. If the political cracks continue to widen under the sun that once symbolized hope, can this retirement paradise withstand the pressure, or will it become a symbol of the fragility of dreams? For many Americans, Florida was once not just an option, but a reward after a lifetime of work. But today, when entering reality, not a few people realize that picture is fading. The so-called retirement paradise gradually revealed a different truth. It was more like a cost trap than a dream of leisure. Change doesn't come from a single event, but from the small details that creep into everyday life. A couple in their 60s said their home insurance premium nearly doubled in just 5 years. Another person, who once believed their pension was enough to live on, is now forced to work part-time at the local supermarket to cover medication bills. Such stories are no longer rare, and each small piece contributes to a larger picture. The cost of living in Florida is becoming unaffordable, even for those who once considered it a place to settle down in their later years. Current policies are only deepening this conflict. Real estate tax incentives and investments in high-end resorts help attract significant cash flow, but simultaneously drive up property values. Housing and healthcare subsidy packages for retirees do exist, but the procedures are cumbersome and the reach is limited. The result is a growing gap. The wealthy can still find paradise, while the majority of the middle class are struggling in the cost trap. This is creating a silent wave of displacement. Many retired Americans choose to move to less expensive states like Tennessee, North Carolina, or even abroad, where retirement policies are more favorable and healthcare costs are lower. As Florida loses its appeal to its core demographic, the question is not just about tourism, but also about identity. Can the retirement paradise truly exist? If a place once considered the ultimate reward for an entire generation is now a burden, where will the American dream of a comfortable retirement find a home? Walking the streets of Florida that were once bustling with tourists today, one might easily feel like they've stepped onto a stage after a performance. The lights were still on, The billboards were still flashing, but the audience had left, leaving behind a gloomy emptiness. The haunting question is, who wrote this play, and who is responsible for the current emptiness? Local people see that impact every day. Small businesses that rely on walk-in customers are forced to close. The empty vacation homes remained vacant for months. The once bustling neighborhoods gradually fell silent. Some people blame policy, others say global consumer trends have changed, but in reality, there is no simple explanation. Each factor, from rising costs and natural disasters to political tensions, contributes a piece to the overall picture. The emptiness is also reflected in the psychology of the residents. Many seniors who once chose Florida for retirement now admit they feel abandoned. They see the value of real estate around them decreasing, local services shrinking, while essential costs continue to rise. Some people call it cruel silence, where no decision is strong enough to change the situation, only prolonged waiting and dwindling faith. In this painting, public policy becomes the most prominent point of focus. Prioritizing the development of high-end tourism with additional fees, instead of supporting affordable tourism and local residents, has inadvertently created a divide. Some post-disaster support programs exist, but don't reach the right places. From a neutral perspective, it can be said that the policy system is still struggling to balance attracting investment and protecting the community. And it is this emptiness that causes many people to feel that Florida is empty from within. In fact, Florida isn't the only state facing this issue. Many famous tourist destinations around the world have gone through similar phases, where the glitz and glamour couldn't hide the structural fragility. The lesson learned is that without diversifying the economy, any paradise can become a low land when tourists turn away. The solution can come from both the public and private sectors. Major brands in the hospitality industry like Hilton can play a leading role in building more sustainable, community-focused tourism models instead of just catering to the upper class. Simultaneously, the state government can expand preferential policies for small and medium-sized enterprises, reducing dependence on a few large corporations. A balanced strategy between development and community protection will be key to bridging the widening gap. If the retirement paradise is structurally empty, can Florida rewrite its story, or will that emptiness continue to spread until there's nothing left to hold on to? While Florida struggles to maintain its image as a retirement paradise, a truth is becoming increasingly clear. Many other destinations around the world, and even within the United States, have quickly risen to prominence, becoming attractive alternatives. Warm beaches, a pleasant standard of living, and retiree-friendly policies. All the ingredients that once made Florida a success story, but are now being exploited and replicated in many other places. A prime example of this can be found in neighboring countries. Mexico, with coastal cities like Mérida and Puerto Vallarta, is attracting an increasing number of tourists and American retirees. Not only because of the lower cost, but also due to the open immigration policy and the growing foreign community. According to a 2024 report by International Living, the number of Americans choosing to retire in Mexico has increased by approximately 15% in just 2 years. This number reflects a real shift, not just a fleeting trend. Not only Mexico, but many European countries are also emerging as alternative destinations. Portugal, with its golden visa program and tax incentives for retirees, was ranked by Forbes magazine as one of the top 5 most attractive countries for older Americans looking to settle. The Mediterranean climate, low healthcare costs, and relatively stable social security make it an attractive option, especially as Florida is losing its competitive edge. Even within the United States, many other states are starting to steal the show. North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arizona are all heavily promoting retirement communities with more affordable costs and pleasant living environments. Moderate urban areas, quality healthcare services, and lower housing costs are creating increasing appeal. For Americans who want to stay in the country, This is a natural alternative to increasingly expensive Florida. For the American people, this change has a deeper meaning. The dream of a peaceful old age, once associated with the image of Florida, is now fragmented. Many families are considering moving abroad permanently, not just because of the cost, but also because of the sense of security and respect they feel from the new policies. If this trend continues, Florida could lose not only its tourism revenue, but also its central place in the imagination of a generation. If these new paradises are constantly opening their doors, what can Florida do to maintain its iconic status? Or will it have to watch its crown quietly pass on? Las Vegas was once seen as a testament to the boundless power of the American tourism industry. The city rose from the desert, becoming a global entertainment hub where the dazzling neon lights never dim. However, behind that dazzling facade, Vegas has also experienced some heavy falls. A real estate bubble, rising costs, and the exodus of the middle class. Florida, heavily reliant on tourism and retirement, is now facing similar signs. The question is this state heading down the same path that Las Vegas once stumbled upon? Vegas was once warned about its over-reliance on a single source of revenue. As the number of tourists decreased and the cost of living increased, the entire city faced a two-world situation. On one side were luxurious hotels, and on the other was the abandoned working community. Florida today also faces that paradox. While high-end resorts are still promoted as symbols of retirement paradise, many local communities are struggling with rapidly rising costs and precarious employment. The skewed economic model, instead of becoming a foundation, is turning into a weakness. A 2024 study by the American Hotel and Lodging Association found that over 60% of middle-income American travelers have cut back or changed their vacation habits because of unexpected costs. This isn't just a statistic, it's a warning. If destinations don't adapt to new needs, they will lose the very customer base that has sustained their success for decades. Florida, like Vegas, is seeing a growing gap between the resort dream and actual affordability. In this risky landscape, the private sector can play a guiding role. Major brands like Hilton or Wyndham can develop multi-tiered resort models, from budget-friendly to high-end, helping Florida maintain its appeal to a diverse range of audiences. It's not just a wise business strategy, but also a way to restore confidence in the image of Florida, a place where everyone can find their place. Is Florida ready to learn from the ghost of Vegas to rewrite its own story? Or will it be too preoccupied with clinging to its past glory until the dream of a retirement paradise is nothing more than a memory? Florida was once considered a reward for a lifetime of work by an entire generation. But today, that image is faltering. Empty streets, vacant vacation homes, and stories of out-of-control costs have turned this retirement paradise into a big question mark for the future. Perhaps what Florida lost wasn't just tourists, but also faith in a dream that was once very real. If an icon like Florida can change so quickly, what will be left for future generations? And where will the leisurely dream that Americans once believed they would find be located? Right in their own country, or somewhere far away? If you've witnessed similar changes, please leave your thoughts below so we can discuss them together. And if you find this story worth more people's reflection, please like and share the video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episodes. The content in this video is for informational purposes and analysis from public sources only, and is not intended to be absolute or to replace professional opinions. Some of the details mentioned may be general or not fully verified. Viewers are encouraged to consult additional official sources before drawing conclusions.